in more than one part of the globe? What about those small conflicts, left and right, that continue to decimate populations? Why? Why, we may ask, and maybe shed a tear. Be that as it may, the entire month of October is also for the United States a month in which Wikipedia tells us Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It is also referred to as the National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, that is in the United States. We are, however, not yet there. So as far as we are concerned, for now, let us focus on what is going on this first Sunday of October, domestic violence or abuse. Yes, we are here today to discuss another nightmare akin to, but not actually limited to, the women folk. So let us hover around and navigate the contours of domestic violence or domestic abuse or whatever we want to call it. It is violence all the same. And so defined by the United States Department of Justice on violence against women as a pattern of abuse, of abusive behavior in any relationship that is used by one partner to gain or maintain control over another intimate partner. Domestic violence is, call it, violence. It is violence or other abuse by one person against another in a domestic setting, such as in marriage or cohabitation. It may be termed intimate partner violence when committed by a spouse or partner in an intimate relationship against the other spouse or partner. And so last week, during their tour of South Africa and speaking to young girls in Johannesburg, the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan, pointed out, and we quote her, the age range of those experiencing violence is, she emphasized, really staggering. She agreed that men and boys should be held accountable for their actions. Domestic violence and or abuse is thus not age or gender or culture specific. It is a malady, a shame, and an unacceptable way of treating someone we think or say we show love to, or we pretend that we love. Do we really love that person to be able to raise our finger against her or him? But if we really love, do we have to hurt or make that person feel bad? Violence is violence no matter on who or whom we meet it. But as the book of, well, let me say this, but as the book of Habakkuk tells us, the rash, or rather, I slow down because I'm going too fast. Well, as the book of Habakkuk tells us, quote, the rash one has no integrity. So if you raise your hand against that woman or against that man, certainly you've lost your integrity. So whoever you are, whatever is on your mind, and whenever you visit any form of violence on anyone in your life, just remember that in so doing, you are throwing out any modicum of integrity you might have had up till then. As we move deeper into the month of October, into the month of awareness about domestic violence, let us keep in mind that we must, quote, remember and honor those loved ones who have lost their lives at the hands of a person they once loved and trusted. Let us work to bring sanity and insanity. Let me read that again. Let us work to bring sanity where insanity triumphs. Let us sow love, and that is unconditional love, where indifference, apathy, and brute force have become the norm rather than the exception. We are all sons and daughters of the Creator, and none among us should be treated worse than the other or be forced to relocate or to leave home bearing those indelible scars. Two quotes here I gathered on my search for this material for this program today. California's Senator Dianne Feinstein says, quote, domestic violence causes far more pain than the visible marks of bruises and scars. It is devastating to be abused by someone that you love and think loves you in return. It is estimated that approximately, take note, 3 million incidents of domestic violence are reported each year in the United States. End of that quote. And Craig Scott says, quote, from every wound there is a scar, And every scar tells a story that says, I survived. No one needs to be put into that situation from which they have to survive in order to be able to tell their story. No one should be made to have to survive just because you made that person a punching bag. We are here to tell the story, to shine the light, and let the discussion continue. Reverend Palm or Divine?
Good afternoon. I think Dr. Kumba is on the line. Dr. Kumba, but you are muted. I don't know if you are ready to unmute and jump in, but thank you so much for zooming in from Dakar.
Oh, she's still in Dakar, Senegal.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay, Reverend Palm.
Yeah. Well,
is she ready?
No, that's fine. Thank you so much, Nia Song. We'll wait for her to unmute. Dr. Kumba, again, you are muted. We'd love to hear from you because I think this is an area you've done extensive work on the continent, and would like to know how this is handled. But Nia Song, this subject is so important because domestic violence and abuse is so prevalent, not just on the continent, but also in the diaspora. There are even women, highly educated women, who are victims of domestic abuse, domestic violence. And again, it's not always physical. To me, the mental and emotional abuse is worse. The scars are deeper than the physical scars, because the physical scars, you can go to the emergency room, they'll patch you up. But the emotional, the mental, damage that the non-violent abuses, non-physical abuses, psychological abuses, those scars are, they are long-lasting.
Yeah, you live with them for all your life.
They are more damaging, and it damages somebody's person, it damages somebody's self-worth, it damages their self-esteem, it damages their confidence, and a lot of them develop illnesses like high blood pressure. Something that we refer in the healthcare industry as psychosomatic, because it's coming from the mind, But then again, I think, okay, Dr. Vivian is unmuted. So Dr. Vivian, the airway is yours. So do you have a question for Dr. Kumba?
Yes, Dr. Kumba, Alel, before we continue, tell me, now we're talking domestic violence. You grew up in Africa, you grew up on the continent. You might have witnessed it either nearby or in the neighborhood, or maybe in some home you visited in the coast. Now tell us, have you lived domestic violence before?
Good afternoon to you, and thank you for having me.
Good evening to you. Thank you.
Domestic violence is a very prevalent, very common situation. And talking about growing up, what I can now describe in hindsight as domestic violence was very common, because you find couples, we used to see this situation of the man is the head of the family, so everything he says goes. The best the woman can do is go into her own cubicle and probably cry for what she did not want to hear her husband say or ask her to do, or met out on her as some kind of sanction for something she might have done. There's no room for mistakes as a wife. You have to live up to a certain expectation. So it's something one saw very regularly, very, very regularly. And I want to say that the idea of domestic violence, the way we know it today, is thanks to a lot of sensitization. It's always been there, but now it has taken a different level because of the level of sensitization. People are more aware of what it is. But even in that awareness, people are shy to report it. Very, very shy. One of the reasons why personally I've been able to identify domestic violence much is because of my interest in marriage counseling. And I took interest in marriage counseling right from when I was a child, because my own dad was a marriage counselor of sorts. I remember as a child, eavesdropping at the door, my father talking behind the door with a couple in the form of a counseling, and you could hear their stories of violence. You know, the attitude of the man towards the woman, expecting all this amount of respect and near worship of a husband. I mean, there has always been violence. There's always been violence. It may not be in every home, but it's present.
Yes, Dr. Kumba, the understanding at that time when you and I grew up was that the man was the head of the family. The man's word could not be countered by the woman because they believed that the woman's place was in the kitchen and her role was to bear children and cook food and work the farms. So whenever a woman did not do any of those things or delayed in doing those things, the man started shouting at her or sometimes even slapping her. So I believe that the times have changed, and thank God we have counselors now like you. So we're able to go out there to tell people, no, this is not the best way to go about it. And I believe that the churches should have been playing a better role than they've played so far, because I know that whenever a woman went to the priest to tell her story, the priest would either not call the man or just say, okay, I will speak to him. And of course, very often it was never done. Homework was never done. So I'm not trying to be critical. I'm just trying to say some of the things I lived, because I realized in the community, there were people that used to beat up their wives, but would go scot-free. Even if they go to the Paramount Chief's Palace, that problem is solved with the woman in her own corner and the man in his own corner. Dr. Kumba.
Yes, what you're describing is very correct. But I want to say that even in our times, even in these times we are living now, even in very young couples, our own children, there is a lot of violence. And Reverend Pam said at the beginning, as I was trying to sign in, I could hear her talk about the forms that this violence takes. You see, we still have a lot of physical violence, yes, but there's a higher level even of psychological violence. You know, women are traumatized. Women are treated very badly, not necessarily beaten up, but treated very badly. And it's reflecting the image of the woman in the broad society, in the broader community. Because why do you think, or why is it that, for instance, there is always this talk about women and career, you know, at the office, even in office settings, just go away from the home, even talking about the broader community. What I can do in an office, I'm doing it. A man doesn't think I should be appreciated for doing it because I'm just a woman. I'm a medical doctor. Somebody wants to call me madam. I say, no, my name is Dr. Kumba. My name is not Madam Kumba. Kumba is my dad's name. I'm not a woman.
I like that. I like that.
You know, so this is the point. For just being female, you're already disadvantaged. It's like you're supposed to be a lower person. And then to make it worse, you have a spouse who is the head of the family. Please, these spouses are heads of the family. From the very beginning, they have been. The Bible defines it that way. We accept it as Christians. We have never wanted to argue against it. But the head of the family is not there to violate the dignity of the partner. The head of the family is there to love and nurture that partner. The Bible defines it.
Exactly.
So why should the head be there just because think that because he is head, everything must go his way? If it doesn't go his way, he gets violent, he insults a woman, he treats her badly, met out punishments like you can't have this, you can't have that, doesn't talk to her, doesn't eat her food. That's too much violence. And it is prevalent. I'm telling you, I'm seeing it even in young children, young enough to be my children, young couples, young enough to be my children. So it's, for me, a very important issue. And because of education, I was just saying that sensitization has come along. Many more people are aware of it, and so it is getting a lot of attention now. But I want to say that, unfortunately, even with that level of attention, it is still very hidden. It's a taboo subject, more or less. You see professional women. I'll give you an example. A woman is a professional. Maybe she's a medical doctor. Maybe I'm talking like this because I have them that I know personally. Maybe she's a magistrate. Maybe, a public service professional. And you see her limping to work, or she has a black eye, as we call it, because somebody has punched her face, then she tells you a story about her injury. It doesn't connect to violence. What nonsense. Call it by its name and handle it.
Yes.
It's the problem. People don't want to call it by its name and handle it. And that's why it is propagating. People don't want to, what are we protecting? You want to protect the same man who gives you a rib fracture. I'm sitting in the hospital. Oh, there's a woman here, there's an emergency. She has a rib fracture, broken bone of her chest. And then, oh, doctor, what, or madam, what happened? I'm noticing that your breathing, we have an x-ray. Probably there's a broken bone here. What happened to you? I fell in the bathroom. Idiot. You were beaten up. You know, and that's where the problem is. They don't want to give it its name.
Yeah.
And the question is, why are we afraid to give it its name? Because I'm going to tell you something about domestic violence. I took interest in it, and I have been studying even around it, reading research papers, and really getting into material documentation about domestic violence. One of the things that happens in domestic violence is that the men who do beat their wives tend to have a certain psychological situation. They are sick, so to say. And so when the wife is understood to have discussed it, she gets more beatings. If you understand, hello?
Yeah, we got you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. So the tendency is this. I give you a typical scenario from personal experience and personal observation from some of the work I have done. You talk to this woman and you realize that she is a victim. She is undergoing a form of violence, not necessarily physical, but sometimes just very slow psychological torture. She is so stressed up and so worked up about everything about her life. And you can trace it from talking to her to the husband's attitude and attitude of in-laws, because domestic violence can extend to what in-laws do to a wife. Now, you tell her, okay, next session, don't come alone. We need to raise this with your husband. And she says, doctor, you dare not. Then it means he will just kill me. You know, therefore, the attitude of the man, when he understands that the woman has been talking about it to a third party, is one of the reasons why the women just stay mute. They don't talk about it. And they don't want to talk about it. And they are even scared to consider talking about it. And I think that we need to help the men. We need to help the men who are violent in their homes, because for the fact that many of them may have a problem, you see, you go back to their childhood, you trace their own problem. They too have personality issues. You know, so it's a very complex situation, I would say, because this man is not just wicked. This man is not just unkind. He is dealing too with a situation. And until we're able to understand it from both sides that way, it is difficult to handle domestic violence. It's not just about why did he beat his wife. There is a very deep-seated problem. And when you interview a number of them, as I have done, and talk to them about themselves, then you start seeing, how was this man raised? What did he see when he was growing up? Oh, no wonder, you know, no wonder. Yeah, no wonder. But then, how do you help this man? They need counseling. They need a lot of education about who they are supposed to be in their homes. They are the head of the family, yes. But in Christian doctrine, being head of the family, what does it imply? They need to know. And how can you get over your problem? A lot of counseling, prayerful sessions, and all that are very helpful for them. They need to pray for themselves a lot, because
now,
it
Doctor,
takes the grace of God.
Yes, Doctor, the place of God. But I wanted to ask you this question, which cropped up my mind as you were talking. Do people grow into domestic violence or grow out of domestic violence? So I'm saying, do they acquire it along the way and then grow out of it as time goes on? Can time heal?
Dr. Kumba, before you answer, Niason, just so you know, Dr. Goji is on, he's actually driving, but he's on, and Miss Tilda is also on from, I believe, Cameroon, if I'm not mistaken. So after Dr. Kumba, please give them, you know, the airway.
Okay. Dr. Kumba, go ahead.
You are asking about whether people grow into violent people, you know, as I'm talking about their upbringing.
Yes.
There's something in psychology. I cannot say the exact translation into English, but in French, it is described as refoulement du conflit interne. It's like saying that I have an internal conflict, and it's the way it comes out. Domestic violence is a typical expression of an internal conflict. They are not violent people as such, but they have some internal conflicts which they need to resolve. And when they want to resolve it, they do it sometimes in the form of these domestic violence actions we are talking about. What do I mean by that? Take a man who watched his father treat his mother badly, and he loved his mother, and so was in the conflict of my father, my mother, my father, my mother. So who do I love more, my father or my mother? You know, and then he grows up into a man with that conflict, and he starts seeing this woman and thinking that, okay, this is my wife. He's married. He's my wife. But the least thing that woman does, at the back of his mind, he wants to remember that, oh, but my mom could never have done this. My dad not let it go. You know, so it's a certain internal conflict. It's not because the man grew up into a violent person, but he is resolving some internal conflict in a violent way. That's why he can get help. That's why he can be helped. Because people who have those kinds of internal conflicts, counseling and education helps them. And until the women can tell you or tell us, and then we get investigating, we cannot get to the man to help the man. So when we keep, that's why the secrecy has to stop. That's why the taboo has to stop. We cannot keep secrecy over issues that need open discussion and handling.
Yes, Dr. Kumba, hold that thought there. Let us get Dr. Ogoji. He's driving, so I think he wants to say something. Then we will continue. Dr. Ogoji, I see you on the screen, flashing in and out. Are you with us now? Can you talk?
Yes, I'm here. How are you guys doing today?
Fine, thanks. Happy Sunday.
Same to you. Yes, I've listened very carefully with on the ideas of the other speaker. All she has said is in order. I want to add that domestic violence is a universal issue. It affects men, affects women, affects children, affects the rich, affects the poor, affects the educated, affects the ignorant, affects the villager, affects the people in the urban city. Based on that, I would say in Africa, where we come from, is generally a women issue. Most women are abused. Most women are abused. They have no say in African society. In this part of the world, the reverse is actually true. For some majority of men have been abused in this part of the world, and they can't say anything. Unfortunately, the laws. Hello?
We are hearing you. We're getting you.
Unfortunately, the laws we have all over the world is there to protect the weak sex. Ladies generally are the weaker sex, in quote, therefore the laws are protecting them. So as we talk about violence in men, we talk about violence in women, the law should be a balance. In Africa, there should be overhaul of the marital law to protect the women. In this part of the world, the men need protection too. Because why am I saying this? It's only in this country whereby there's one law in this country whereby if a woman accuses her husband of domestic violence wrongly, I mean, she called the call and said, my husband beat me up very well, okay? The cop comes there, he will say, oh, this woman just told a lie because he claimed the husband beat her up, but there's no evidence of beating. That woman cannot be arrested because if she's arrested for lying to the cops, it will deter other women from calling help when they need help. On the other hand, if a woman says, man beat me and there's no, and he say, my dear man, as a guy, you are doomed forever. I say, she say, you cannot do into that. So, based on that, I would say domestic violence needs to be addressed and spoken about. The law should be balanced, whereby the victim should be identified as victim, whether a guy or a female, because men are dying in silence too in this part of the world, especially African men in diaspora. So, from experience, what I've seen from people go around, a man will come and tell me, I do this, X, Y, and Z. And the woman will say, beat me, and you go to jail. Touch me, you go to jail. And the woman will actually hit the guy. You can't touch back. Because you touch back, you're finished. That can happen in Africa. That can happen in Africa.
That's true.
That can happen in Africa. So there are things that a woman will tell you in this part of the world that she will not even think of telling you in Africa. On the other hand, again, there should be a balance, okay? I frown at men who spank their wives. I'm a gynecology all the way from Nigeria and UK and here in the US. Personally, when I was in Nigeria, if a woman comes to my office and I say a scratch mark, I say, bring that man here. I say, why did you beat your wife? I've said that before. Have I called my father once when I was growing up? I said, Daddy, why did you beat my mother? My dad said, what? I said, why did you beat my mother? And I end there. And that was the last time he touched my mother. I said, if you beat my mother, with all due respect, I'll beat you back. I didn't mean it.
That was an angel.
But I had to say that so that he knows that. I said, you cannot beat me. You cannot beat my baby sister. What makes you think you can touch a woman that has 9 children for you?
Exactly.
So that is my take. And then on this part of the world, I look, there are things that a woman will say to you, say, oh my goodness, is it because we live in America? What's going on here? So there should be a balance. Men should speak up and men should be wise. Never you touch a woman. A woman beat you 20 times, run away. Don't touch a woman. Okay? Don't give opportunity for he say, she say. You are doomed forever. The laws are against you. On the other hand, love your wife, and then hopefully the law will balance so that men need to protect. Men, this part of the world need protection. Really, especially professional men. If you have a profession here, your wife can do anything, and you just have to say yes, ma, or you're doomed.
Okay, Dr. Ogoji, thank you so very much for that touching touching remarks by you. I think Tilda is also on the line. Tilda, are you ready to share your views on domestic violence or abuse? Thank you and welcome to the program.
Yes, I'm right here. I don't know why my picture is not showing, but
turn on your video. Turn on your video.
Oh, how do I turn it on?
You'll see the little yes.
Okay. Okay, I've seen it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here and I want to give my
We can see you now. Thank you. Welcome.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm in the US. I'm in Maryland right now.
Okay.
I want to say that domestic violence is real. And when we talk about domestic violence, it is not just about the physical violence. We have different forms. We have different forms of violence. Are you getting me?
Yes, we are.
We are.
Yes.
Go ahead.
We have different forms of violence. We have psychological, we have physical, and we have sexual. And these forms of violence, just listening to the last person who spoke, in the Western world, there is more of psychological violence. No doubt, physical violence does exist, but what I've discovered as a psychologist, as a psychosocial counselor that I am, I have discovered that the degree of psychological violence in the Western world is very high. Now, what are the key issues? In Africa, for example, women are beaten and it is taken like normal by their husbands. If a woman is beaten by the husband, it is normal because according to our tradition, it is believed that a woman is property and a woman is paid for. So the person who has bought the woman has a right to treat her the way he wants. Now, in other places in the world, from my experience, most traditional beliefs and practices have made it to look like most women are property. And so because of the cultural beliefs, most women are viewed as things that could be used the way they are. And this, in fact, has influenced the degree of behavior of men towards their wives. So in families in Africa, culture is what is leading, and culture is what has brought a lot of violence, notwithstanding, not refusing the fact that men are also violated. Now, in the Western world, what happens is that people, I would say this before I talk about the Western world. What I have discovered is that many people get into marriages without really perfectly understanding what marriage should be. Marriage is still viewed as a place where people can fight, people can come in, and there are two different individuals where a lot can go on. Now, to talk more about domestic violence, it is not only between husband and wives. There are aspects of domestic violence that comes from the family. There are some women who are suffering in their marriages not because of their husbands, but because of the influence that comes from the husband's family. That is domestic violence. There's a degree of domestic violence that is suffered by the children who are like domestic workers in the home. Hello, are you getting me?
Yeah, we're getting you. Go ahead.
Yes. There is also domestic violence in the home as a whole, where many people suffer from it. That is, even the domestic workers, your children, your children from your family who are living with you. And you see that in a home, there is a lot that goes on with it. In fact, a few months ago, I had a call from a child, a young student, who called me and said, "Mommy, I want to report to you because I have nobody to talk to." And I asked her, "What is the problem?" She simply said, "She's being sexually harassed by the uncle at home." And when I asked her, "What have you done?" She said she has struggled several times to inform the father and the mother. The uncle is the junior brother to the mother. Each time she tries to inform, she meets with a lot of resistance. And this young man is playing some games. He tries to show to the whole family that he loves this girl so much, so he provides everything that she needs. And for that reason, everybody is saying that, but this woman, how can you be complaining about your uncle, whereas he shows a lot of love to you? Nobody knows what that child is going through. I say this because I want to highlight the fact that it is only the person who is suffering from domestic violence who actually understands and feels the pinch. Many of us who are just looking and talking as we talk now, we will never know the pinch. I shared something on my page this week, my Facebook page, of a woman who was battered by the husband, and she has forgiven the husband, and according to her, she's doing it for the sake of the children. Yes, granted, forgiveness is good, but my question is, this forgiveness, what are the measures that are taken such that this kind of man should not commit such an act again, and also to stop other men who may be thinking that they can do this, and vice versa, even women who are violatory to their husbands. Like in the Western world now, most of the complaints I'm getting, they center around the fear of the unknown from the man, maybe the feeling that the woman is proud because there's a common word here, a woman is an RN, and the woman is feeling much more important, having much more money, and so is inflicting violence on the man. So this kind of complaints I've had more than, I can say, just in the short while that I'm here, I've had more than 15 of them. Now, so my question now is it the feeling of the man, or truly these women are violating the men? This comes back to another form of violence, which is because men hardly would want a woman who is more than them, whether financially or position-wise. Most men have what we call male pride, and they don't want to accept a woman who has more money than them, or who is having a bigger position, a greater position than them. And this can be a source of violence in the home. This can be a source of psychological violence, which can sometimes lead to physical violence. And why not? Sometimes There is marital rape just because the man wants to ascertain himself that I am the boss of this house. So I think domestic violence is real. And as the last person just said, it is changing its forms. It is not the same in Africa as it is in Europe or in America. It is not the same from as it is in house A, in house B. It changes its form, but whatever form it takes, domestic violence is real. And I would like to shout out to the doctor who just spoke.
Dr.
It is true that yes, Dr. Kumba, it is true that people are violent, that men are violated. This is very true. But the degree of men who are violated, it is not as high as it is in women. Even in the Western world, where some men are violated, we even in that instance of feeling that a woman is violating the husband, there's a lot of violence that same man inflicts on the woman, sometimes without knowing. Just by when we talk about psychological violence, what does it entail? Snubbing someone, not eating their food, not staying at home, not talking with that person. It kills more than physical violence, because physical violence may hurt for a while, but the psychological violence stays. And these three types of violence that I've just enumerated, they are killing marriages today. They are breaking families. Sexual violence is real.
Tilda. Yes, thank you very much, Tilda. Don't go away. We want to cross over to Senegal, where Dr. Kumba is. She's been listening for quite some time.
Oh, yeah, I see her.
Yeah, she's right there. Dr. Kumba, Tilda mentioned something. Staying because of the children, doing nothing because of the children. Should you be a permanent punching bag just because the love you have for your children? Dr. Kumba, over to you on the continent.
You see, this whole statement of because of the children is a common statement from women, from us. And there's a lot that mothers endure and do because of the children. But it is not right that she should have to submit herself to any form of violence, any form of disrespect for her dignity because of children. I said earlier, it can be handled. Instead of submitting herself to violence and saying, I have forgiven my husband because of the children, like the last speaker just said, what can be done to reintegrate her relationship with her husband without that violence? There's a lot that can be done. There are services available. Some countries have very well established services. Unfortunately for us, like back here in Africa, there's hardly any service available, like a public service situation. But some of us are doing private and individual things. The church is doing things, and it is gaining grounds. People should report these issues. And when we say report, we are not saying that we want to take a case to court. We are saying that we want to talk about it with the victim, with the perpetrator, and see how to help them. Just listen to what the last speaker was saying. A woman has more money than her husband. So I was talking about the refoulement du conflit interne. The man starts asking himself, who is the head of this family? What determines who is head? Is it her money? Nonsense. What is money? And then he slaps her. You know, that's how it starts. It's a basic psychological problem in the man also. That's why it's not just about helping the woman get over it. It's also helping the man get over the psychological state in which he finds himself at the time when he is perpetrating this violence. I think it's a very key issue. And I mentioned even in the last week when we were talking about mental health in Africa, it is so I mean, the paucity of it is an embarrassment, because if we had a situation where we could have clinical psychologists easily available, we could have psychiatrists easily available, then we would even be gaining more grounds. But they're not available. Some of us have to delve into psychosocial counseling and get into some of these things to be filling gaps that are really not supposed to be filled by us, you know. But the message is clear. There is domestic violence. We cannot keep hiding it. We have to unlock our mouths. The padlock on our mouths must fall. We must talk about it and talk about it and talk about it until something gets somewhere.
Yes, Dr. Kumba, thank you. Don't go away. I know you will not. Reverend Pam from Houston, you've not said much about this violence except when we started, but I believe that there are some questions itching in your mouth you want to ask our guests. So please, Reverend Pam, go ahead if you have questions or you want to welcome another guest.
No, I actually have a lot to say, but I wanted to give the airways to our guests, so
yes.
I'll let them have the airway. But Ms. Taylor, thank you so much. And of course, Dr. Kumba, I'm so grateful to God that, you're staying up to dialing. I have a couple of questions, and Ms. Taylor, you can go first, and then Dr. Kumba. We have not talked much about the children. And in Proverbs 18:21, it said, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. One thing people don't realize is the tongue is just a hydrostat. It has no bones, but it can break bones. The people that say, oh, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words cannot. Yes, words do. They break you, they destroy you. There are a lot of children that feel worthless because of the things that they hear at home, which is domestic violence, the things that their parents use their mouth to say to them. Stupid child, useless child, you'll never amount to anything. You can't do this, you can't do that. And then when it comes to flogging, I understand discipline, that some of these parents beat the Jesus out of children. I mean, beat them mercilessly. Which is not just about corruption. You see that, check your background, we're hearing some noise. To me, that is not discipline. That is cruelty, that's abuse. So let's talk about the children. Because children don't choose their parents. Parents choose their spouses. Children don't choose their parents. And a lot of children are victims of domestic violence and domestic abuse. So and then Dr. Kumba.
Yeah, thank you very much. Talking about children, there's a lot to say there. First of all, what makes domestic violence to continuously be like a kind of a ripple effect, that is to continuously be after a generation after generation, is the fact that children are raised in families where there is violence. And so when they are growing up, they are longing to grow up and then quickly become grown ups so that they can also exert their own power on each other because they learned from their parents. That's one. Then secondly, there are many children who are seemingly useless today. There are some people who cannot even find their self-esteem. They don't have any confidence because of the way they were brought up. You keep telling a child that you are stupid, you are foolish, you are this or that. What do you expect that child to become?
Our video froze. Still that we can't hear you.
Oh, what is happening? Are you getting me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, yeah, go ahead.
When children are continuously told that they are very, very stupid, they are dull fellows, they are this or that, oh, you are as dull as your mother, oh, you are stupid like your father, you will be useless like your father. You are telling those children to develop that uselessness in them. And so many children today, many of us adults today, are not behaving as we should because of the way, the background, the way we were socialized. So to answer to your question, Reverend Pam, I would say that many children do suffer as the result of domestic violence in different ways. Some of them just reject themselves and then they grow up with a different mindset. Some of them pray to get married so that they too can show how powerful they are. Mostly the boys. Most boys from homes where there was violence are violent to their wives. Most girls from homes where their mothers said 50 things, 50 words before the father said one, they are very lousy today. So the children, most of the children have not become the personalities that they should be today because of that. And anybody who is practicing domestic violence in their home, they have to be aware, they have to know that you are not bringing up the children the way they should go, because the Bible says it, as you quoted, rightly quoted. If you don't bring up the children, giving them the virtues that you think are necessary for them, the children will grow up with vices that you may not want to accept when you see them in future. May bring you problems. So many people who are living and practicing domestic violence within their homes, they have to be creatively aware. Recently, somebody told me that The husband went and brought a child from outside, out of wedlock, and then brought the child to the house. And she has been violated every day. She's been beaten, insulted because of that. And now the husband has set the children against themselves. And so because of that, she too now is trying to protect her children, and she's telling her children not to even relate with that child. You see what the effects of domestic violence? So these children will grow up and they will become very, very bad. And in future, what do you expect from such children?
Thank you very much, Ms. Tilda. Dr. Kumba, same question, the impact on children. We have, I think, 11 minutes before the top of the hour.
Yes, the impact on children. You know, when I talked the first time, I was already saying it, that some of the people we see today perpetrating violence against their wives were observers of violence in their homes. It stands to reason. What you saw when you were growing up, you will do when you grow up. But my take on it is that there is a need. When I talk about these things, I like a lot to tilt it towards a need, so that people who are listening to us should know that we can do something. You know, there is a need for parenting counseling, parenting guardians. There is a need for prenuptial counseling and education. You see, the services are available. Even in the context of the church, the services are available. But how many people avail themselves for those services is the question. You don't need to sit in your little corner and be dying and kill and suffering. Avail yourself of services and make use of them. If you want to get married, remember that you're getting married and you may raise children who will be the leaders and who will be even your carers for tomorrow. Do you want to get into a marriage and then raise children who cannot even take care of you when you grow old yourself? Do you want to have children who will tomorrow take care of you? If your answer is in the affirmative, then you need to work on it ab initio. You need to work on it from the beginning, because all these children suffer. Children suffer. They do poorly in school. They are very difficult adults to deal with. They are very perverted characters. Many of them take to crime. You know, if you see the number of children in prison who had violence in their homes, you will know what I'm talking about. They take to crimes. You know, so it's a very deep problem. Children suffer, and they suffer deeply. So as a parent, the question one should be asking oneself is, do I want to have children who will suffer or children who will live well? You know, because you were quoting it clearly. You owe the maker a duty to bear children and raise them appropriately. It is not just about having children, it's about raising them into better people. You know, your children are supposed to be better than you, because the world is evolving and improving. So you cannot raise children who are so perverted, who become criminals. You were not even a criminal yourself, but because you perpetrated violence, the conflicts in your child bring the child in conflict with community and society, and the child turns into a violent person and ends up even being a criminal. I mean, these are very salient society issues, and it is an abomination that they are still happening. No matter, like Dr. Ogochi said, no matter levels of education, no matter, they are there. And I want to tell you that the worst part of the worst forms of violence occur in homes where the couples are, both spouses are very educated.
Yeah, what a shame.
That's the problem. One of the reasons is that the more educated the woman is, the more she wants to assert herself. That too is true. She wants to assert herself, but it's a right that she should assert herself. But somebody should be willing to accept her too and appreciate her, because it is not possible that a woman some village woman who didn't go hard to school, is just a simple village woman. She would tolerate certain things, but a woman who has been educated, who is a society, who is a professional, will not tolerate certain things easily. It makes it more difficult for her, and the violence is worse in that situation. Then what will she do with her children? When we're talking about children, one of the things that we are trying to teach parents in parental counseling is very simple: positive language. Positive language. We are God's creation, and the Creator did not do anything to make us. He just spoke by word. He spoke, and it was. And because we are his images, we speak and it is. So when you speak on your child, remember it will be, because you are made in the image of God and he is in you, his spirit is in you. So when you speak, be careful what you say, even to each other as adults. You know, this dull child, I've asked a parent once, even in the consultation room, you see a woman who brings a child who is sick, and then she says something, the child is already sick. The doctor is trying to communicate with the child, and the child is not behaving. We say, stupid child, sick boy, can't you hear the doctor is talking to?
There you go. There you go.
That's stupid. The boy stupid. Oh, are you stupid? Why do you call a child stupid? Not stupid, the boy stupid. You know? So this is the problem. Parenting is a whole new, it's a whole different ball game in its own self. But since we're talking about violence, the words we use on our children, if they are negative, they are a horrible form of violence. Simply.
You know, Dr. Kumba, thank you so much. You know, it is a shame, because I think it's ignorance, because if the parents actually know the damage that they are doing to their children, they will not say this. But then we have about 5 minutes. So I'm going to bring this up to both of you before the top of the hour, and then after that I'll hand the mic over to Niasong. But spouses, verbal abuse is one of the most common forms of domestic abuse. I think there's some background noise coming up, but you know, there are men that don't look forward to going home, and there are women that avoid going home just because of the amount of violence that's at home. And when I'm talking about violence, I'm not talking about physical anymore. I'm talking about verbal abuse is a form of domestic violence. You know, when you are at work, you deal with so many challenges. Maybe an unruly boss or co-workers, you know, the environment cannot be as comfortable at home. But when you get off work, do you really want to go home, or do you try to make several stops and come home when it's just enough time for you to go to bed because you are avoiding your spouse? You know, in Ephesians 5:21, God is so smart, because a lot of men want to ask the wives. We're going to do a marriage series next month. We've done that a few times, but they always quote verse 22 that says, wives, submit unto your husband. They forget verse 21, where God said they should submit one unto another. God is so smart. God knew that he had to put verse 21 in for verse 22. And then the men that are quoting verse 22 saying wives should be submissive, they are forgetting verse 25 that says that the men should love their wives the way Christ loved the church and died for the church. How many men are willing to die for the church? And I think that when there's mutual respect, when there's mutual submission, all this will be available. Another thing too is financial challenges. And again, when we take this up, when we get to the top of the hour, we'll break and then announce and then come back. But sometimes, you know, there are couples that are doing just fine until, you know, the bank account becomes dry. All of a sudden now, you say good morning, the other person say what's good about the money. Or the woman cooks something that, you know, normally he would have liked, and all of a sudden the salt is too much, or there's a pepper is too much. Just because of stress, transferred aggression, they take it. So we need to look at all these things. And I want to say to our sisters and our brothers back home, seek help. If a man lays his hands on you one time, let it be the last time. Don't keep quiet. You don't have to endure it. If a woman lays her hands on you, because a lot of women that like to slap the men, especially in the diaspora, knowing that the men cannot slap back, you know, and then some of these women are very tiny and very petite. And when the cops come, they cannot believe that a tiny person like this can hurt a big man. I know of a situation, because as a minister too, I get the opportunity to talk to people. There was this couple. She is so tiny, but to tell you the truth, she's possessed. She's loaded with demons. If you know what this woman does to the husband, I'm talking about wounds. This guy, we could not even believe it until the guy opened his shirt and showed us the tracks that this woman, this unassuming girl, tiny, she's about 4 foot something, very tiny, maybe less than 100 pounds. The kind of scars she put on that man, you will not believe it. And there are a lot of women that like to remove their shoes and use their high heels on men, put holes on their head or even on children. So I just want to encourage our brothers and sisters. And after the announcement, after the top of the hour, Dr. Kumba and Ms. Tilda, you guys can weigh in. But I want to speak directly to our brothers and sisters back home and to our children. Don't accept it. I don't care if it's verbal, psychological, physical, emotional. Don't accept it. It is not acceptable. That is not how life should be. You are the apple of God's eyes. He made us, all of us, in His image. We all bleed red. If you are a woman, maybe you were brought from the village to a city, and your husband is abusing you, whether he's forcing himself on you when you don't want to go to bed. I know of a lady that the husband kicked her out of the house because she was too tired to have sex. The church had to intervene to help her. You know, it is not acceptable. It is not. Look for help. Tell a teacher, tell a neighbor, tell somebody. Tell somebody. And for that child that Miss Tida was talking about, who kept trying to tell the father about the uncle abusing her. Yes, the uncle is buying all those material things to entice this girl or to cover up his tracks. No amount of material thing is worth the kind of damage that, because that girl is going to eventually have to get married tomorrow. And this girl is not going to be a good wife to the husband just because of the abuse. That's why most children that were violated sexually end up in prostitution. You know, a lot of these prostitutes were children that were sexually violated. And I think near somewhere at the top of the hour, right?
Yes, go ahead now and let us hear what you have up your shoulder.
Yeah,
or up your sleeve, as they say.
Thank you so much. Again, after the announcement, Dr. Kumba then Ms. Tilda about what I just said, but starting next week, tomorrow, we're gonna be talking about witchcraft and superstition. You know, when we were growing up, we had all kinds of stories. You know, when I was a boy, I heard that, the Bakri people could turn into a shrine. You know, in Tombe, they had their own. Then there's this myth about, and I'm giving examples in Cameroon because that's where I'm from. Bamenda people have thunder. You know, my thing is, if they have thunder, that would be the most powerful nuclear weapon ever. The United States would have hired them, you know, to use thunder against their enemies. So all these superstitions and witchcraft, with what is happening there now, we know that all those people don't have any powers. Because if they did, Bamenda would not have a bloodbath. They would have just sent thunder to destroy all the military people and all the people that are killing people there. So we're going to be talking about witchcraft. We're going to be talking about superstition starting this weekend, because we Africans, even in the USA or in the diaspora, there are still Africans that still believe that, somebody can go home and bring witchcraft and do something to you. My dear, nobody, God is the only one that is powerful. That's all powerful, is omnipotent. Nobody can harm you except you allow them to harm you. Nobody has the powers to take your life. Nobody has any powers to turn you into an animal. Nobody has those powers. People come up with all these crazy things to frighten people, but then who am I? That's just one opinion. We'll hear the opinion of others. And then I would like to encourage Dr. Kumba, Ms. Tilda, and others, talk to your friends about the show. This show, we put it at this time because we want to be a blessing. It's about our people on the continent. That's why it's at this time, so that they are still awake, they can hear. We are raising awareness about issues that affect Africans and Africa, seeking solutions to those issues and making progress. It's not about any of us, it's about our people sharing information. And then one other quick thing I wanted to say to encourage Dr. Kumba, it's a good thing you are diversifying your experience, because no knowledge acquired is ever lost. As a doctor, knowing all these psychological issues, even being a counselor, helps you be a better doctor. You're not just one of those doctors that a patient comes, you look at them for 5 minutes and write a prescription. No, you talk to them, you counsel them, and come up with the right diagnosis. Because if you don't talk to them, you will not know that this woman is being destroyed from the inside, or this man. So again, I want to encourage everyone, talk to people about the show, and the show again, is to raise awareness about issues that affect Africans and Africa, seek solutions to those issues and making progress. And hopefully the right authorities, the right stakeholders will get a hold of it. We're streaming on Facebook. Right now, our website it's under construction. We've had a website up for 3 years, so we need to get it back up. but then we want people to be able to know that they need help. And if you don't know anybody, send us, a message on our Facebook. We'll try to reach you, try to get you some help. Over to you, Ni Asong, and then I know Dr. Kumba, and then Miss Tilda.
Thank you, Reverend Pam, for that topic for the week, witchcraft and superstition. Very timely, because, of course, so many things are happening, and we need to discuss some of these issues. Back on the topic.
Halloween.
Yeah.
That was why we selected that topic.
That's right. That was because of Halloween, which is not in my culture. I mean, I was surprised when the school system told me about it, and they had children doing funny things. All the same, children in marriage or out of marriage, but involved with this bad thing we call domestic violence. What should the parents do? What should the dads do? What should the moms do? And I wanted to just say, whatever it is, there is this other aspect in domestic violence, which I see very often. One party leaves the house. Is leaving the marital home the answer to solving the domestic violence thing? But first, the place of children in domestic violence. Dr. Kumba.
Thank you very much. Before we went for the announcement, we had been talking about children in domestic violence situations, and children are really just a terrible victim. And because of the victim position of the children, this domestic violence becomes a very vicious cycle, because the children grow into adults, as we are saying, who will do the same thing or are more likely to do the same thing. A few may not directly do the same thing, yes, but most of the time they do the same thing, because it is easier to, children learn by observation. It's a known fact that children learn by observation. So what they see, they grow up and do. But talking about children in the case of in situations of domestic violence, what we need really is that, as we are emphasizing, they should know that they should seek help. If you don't know what to say to your father or to your mother who is treating the other person violently, seek help. Go to your pastor, talk to somebody in the church, talk to your school teacher, because we are trying to say that until we talk about these things, this, for me, it is very salient to talk about it, because the silence is the nourishing factor here. The more silent it is kept, the better it is growing. That's the reality on the table. Talking about children and violence, the example of the little girl whose uncle is showering her with gifts, you see, it's a very typical scenario, because even the parents would do things like that. The parent who violates the child, or who beats the child, or who is treating the child very, very poorly, wants to shower the child with gifts. And that is the peak of bribery and corruption, because we are talking about bribery and corruption. We're talking about corrupt political leaders, but this thing is right inside the family house. It is present right inside the family house. The parent who is the more violent one is always cajoling the child with something or another, so that the child is tilting towards them. So if it's the man, you see the man giving the children sweets in the house, and it is very typical. You will be surprised how much of it one has observed, even just visiting homes. Me, I'm I don't know, I'm the kind of person I am. I can sit in a home just for a home visit, just visit somebody, and by the time I leave that home, I evaluate it, and I will 90% of the time be right. Because you see this child who runs always back to the father or to the mother, you know that there's something not right somewhere. Because the parents the violent partner has a way of trying to to paint a picture to the child of being a better parent, yet they are the violent ones. And in reality too, the spouses too do it to each other. I have seen a couple of situations that I have worked with, a number of couples with situations of domestic violence that I have had to counsel and accompany towards resolving problems. Because as we say, when you encounter couples with problems, you are not looking at divorce or helping somebody leave the house. That's not the role we play. Our role, we try to play the role of keeping them there. They should be able to forgive and move on. They should be able to adjust, amend the situation. But you see a man starts telling you, doctor, I don't know what is wrong with my wife. I think my wife has a serious problem. You need to evaluate her. She seems to be suicidal. That man is a violent man because he is looking for how he will cover up the day the woman will die from beating. You hear him, but when he's talking like that, he's showing her with gifts. He's praising, he's doing things that make it look like, I love my wife. I don't know why my wife is suicidal. My wife. But go and interview that woman. The last fracture she had, it was the beating. The last wound she came for suturing, it was the beating. But this is the same man, worried that the wife will commit suicide. But he's the same man, beating up the wife mercilessly every day. These people have a real psychological issue in their character. For me, from my observation, from what I have read and observed about this domestic violence thing, there is a lot of psychiatric issues in it. And Reverend Pam described one issue there which I have deliberately avoided: demonic possession. Demonic possession.
Yes.
That one is a no-go area for me today. I don't even want to talk about it because that one is terrible. If somebody is possessed, why would the person not leave scars on another person's body? What's a demon? For God's sake, because demons, when there's demonic possession, the level of wickedness, we're not even talking about a normal psychological problem anymore.
Yeah.
We are now talking about real evil. That's bad. That is, and it's available, it's around. So this domestic violence thing goes very deep. That's why sometimes, even in work, I have had to ask between couples. I mean, you are sitting in my office in front of me and I'm asking you, you just want to not get which? Because this thing was too deep.
Yes.
You see, they talk to each other, the evil in language, in front of me, a third part. It's terrible sometimes. It's really just terrible sometimes. And once there is a demonic matter in it, it becomes difficult. We send to pastors, we send to the church, and we say, please help them, they need help.
That's right. Okay, Dr. Kumba, let us turn to Tilda at this point to have her take. And Reverend Pan, I don't know if Dr. Ogoji is still on, but all the same, let's go to Tilda first.
No, after Tilda,
yes.
We lost Dr. Ogoji. I think he was driving, he got to his destination. So
yes.
Okay.
Then I'll chime in briefly. There's something I want to add, then I'll back to you.
Yeah, Tilda, over to you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. I want to come back to a point Reverend Pam made concerning verbal abuse. Verbal abuse is the highest and newest form of violence, of domestic violence. And I am shouting out to women. Women, listen to me. It is not the number of words that you throw at your partner that will make your point be heard. Many women have been socialized to talk, and sometimes they think that it is true that they are the weaker sex, and for that reason they use their mouth as their whip. I want to say that this is one of the biggest violence that we are inflicting on men and our children.
Yes.
When you use verbal abuse, it is very, very dangerous because it kills fast. And I am not by any way saying that men are not doing it too. Some men are experts in verbal abuse.
That's true.
They don't beat you. They don't do anything. They just snub. They just, through their words, they just say, look at this idiot, this prostitute I got, and they go away. And then you remain asking yourself, am I really a prostitute? What am I doing? Then you see the degree of hypertension. People who are hypertensive, doctor, you would know it. It is rising. And there are so many women. Recently, I talked to a family that confided in me. The man said, I have developed hypertension. But when I started to talk to the two of them, I discovered that he too was contributing a lot to this because of the fear of the unknown, because of male pride, because of imagination. So there is a lot that is going on. Now, the most important thing that we can do to stop domestic violence, to start working to reduce, because it will take time to stop. The first thing is to break the silence. There's an uncomfortable silence, uneasy silence. There's a complicity of silence that surrounds domestic violence. You would hear a woman, like one told me in my office in Yaoundé, she said, I don't want to spoil the family name. I don't want to. Educated woman, well educated with good career. She would tell me, no, I don't want to spoil my family name. Is there any family name that is bigger than you if you die? And I asked her, I said, are you sure of what you're saying? She said, let me go and think. Then after some time, she called me and said, I just don't want to take any action because of my family name. There are some women who are accomplices to rape of their children.
Yeah.
Some women, because they want to. Another thing is materialism. Women who want to get more. When they see their husbands getting money from wrong sources, their husbands go into occultic groups. Then they ask them to come and rape their children or even rape their mothers. Women follow and stay quiet. They zip their mouths. The culture of silence, they close their mouths and they just allow these people to do this kind of things. We need to break the silence that surrounds these things, because if we don't start talking about, recently, like now, the violence that is going on now is in different forms. Because people think that a woman is a weaker sex, somebody can just waylay you on the way and catch you and do anything they want to do with you, because they think that you are a woman, you are of a weaker sex. So we need to start reporting the perpetrators. Because when you don't report, you are an accomplice. And when you are an accomplice and the violence is being meted on you, know that when you die, there will be no second you. So women have to break the silence. Those women who are hiding I have had 2 serious cases I canceled of domestic violence. One was a case of a little girl who got pregnant, a girl of 11 years. In fact, there are 2 cases. The girls were of the same ages. But this one was impregnated by a so-called man of God. I'm sorry, Reverend Pam, but that's
No, don't be sorry, please. Don't.
Yes, a so-called man of God who was supposed to be the spiritual leader of this family. He was always going to that family, and because the family too just flew, the woman was doing everything. You cook food and send your daughter to go and give the man of God. You send your daughter to go and clean the house of the man of God. You are subjecting your daughter into violence, and that is another aspect of domestic violence. And then this child was going there. This man of God will rape her, will force sleep her, and tell her that it is spiritual. If she says it anywhere, she will die.
Blood of Jesus.
And this girl got pregnant. She could not talk to anybody. She did not even know whether it was pregnancy. The parents too did not suspect. Nobody even ever thought of it until the day they called me and said, we hear that you are a psychosocial counselor. Please, can you talk to our daughter? She's only sick. She's only changing in shape. She's only sick. We have done all tests and nothing is changing. Then I said, the only condition I will talk to your daughter will be when you do a pregnancy test. Come and see the way I was instructed. The mother told me that you are a bad woman. How can you talk about a pregnancy test to an 11-year-old child? I told her I am talking from experience. Finally, what happened? They resisted, and finally they gave in. We took this child to the hospital, and the child, behold, she was 6 months pregnant. And then I had to spend days. I spent four days with that girl. It was on the night of the 4th day. I was sleeping with that girl in a hotel room to try to get her talk. And this girl finally opened up and told me, Auntie, I will talk. And she could only talk when I had explained all the different acts of sex, the one that is rape, consented sex, and all. Then I told her, if any of this had happened to you, tell me. That night she touched me and said, I want to talk. And she said it was Uncle Pastor. I said, what? Uncle Pastor did what? She now told me, because my organization back home we work with plainclothes police. we had to take them. I had to take them to that home. And in that home, I was doing everything. All of you are counselors. You know, if you are a counselor, you are not careful, the victim closes up, you'll be blamed. So you can imagine how the kind of prayer I was praying until the girl was able to release, to openly tell in that house with that pastor present who was invited, because I played a trick and said they should invite their spiritual leader. He came. And he was saying, peace be to this house. When immediately the child said, it was Uncle Pastor. He said, God forbid, this is sacrilege. Oh, this is blasphemy. Oh, this is that. He called all kinds.
I read the Bible.
Yes, he called all kinds of words. He said it was persecution. But finally, the only thing that helped me was that we did our best, and this man was sentenced to 6 years for that. We struggled and got urgent action for the girl, and the girl got the baby, and then we sent her back to school. The next one was being raped by the father, 11-year-old child. The man beat the wife until the wife left the house. This little girl, now I'm saying this as an example for women to listen to me. This little girl, each time she goes to the mother and tells the mother that I don't want to go back to my daddy, the mother will say, no, go back. If you don't go, your daddy will say that I have left the house and I'm taking away his children from him. She kept saying this, and the child was being raped every night. The man was venting, he was venting his anger on this child every night. And the child was with the little brother. He will come and he will be doing all what he's doing to this girl in front of the little brother.
Oh no.
Until one day this girl came and cried and said, I will not go back. The woman called me and said, Auntie, this girl, I don't know what to do. Advise me. I don't want them to blame me. I told her, why are you forcing her? You are also a parent. Then she told me that it looks like it's more serious. I decided to go to their home. And when the child revealed it, I cried for a week. The little one was saying, this is how daddy comes and does. This is what he does to my sister. Meaning that you have destroyed 2 children in a home.
Exactly.
And then the woman, when I said we have to report, we have to take this to law, they were saying, no, it will be a disgrace. It will be this. I told them that, okay, now I'm wearing my cap of human rights defender, and I don't need your advice. Exactly. And that's how we followed up that case. So women, the key to this is for us to break the silence. Whether you are a victim or you are an observer, some of us are neighbors. We sit there, we hear the woman being beaten every day, or we hear fighting in that home every day. We're just quiet. When one person dies, we stay quiet. Harriet, last year we were asking for justice for Harriet in Limbe, who died, was killed by the husband. She was being beaten. She had, I think, 5 children, being beaten every day, and she kept saying, I'm staying there for my children. What happened? She lost her life. I know of women in Yaoundé who don't have, some of them have lost fingers. I know of a woman who was kicked on the stomach and she was pregnant. She had to miscarry twins. I know of these cases. So my dear sisters and brothers, domestic violence is real. And I think we also have to go back to the drawing board. People have to go back to the drawing board. What is the reason of marriage? People have to redefine this. I think you have to discuss this in one of your
hold the fire. Reverend Pam, I think you had something to say before we move on.
Before I say that father would think the daughter should be castrated, you know.
I tell you.
Yeah, I think Dr. Koji is back, but one of the things I wanted to say, which has not been touched today, was these abusers, the perpetrators, before they start doing that, they try to isolate the prey or the victim from family and friends. If you are a woman and you are married, I'm not saying that bring your entire girl squad with you into your marriage. That's not what I'm talking about. But once a man, I don't care who the man is, any man in your life, start isolating you from family and friends, know that danger is coming. Know that that man has an ego, a fragile ego, or some self-esteem issues, or some kind of psychological problems, because you know, once they isolate you now, they can torture you. They know you don't have anybody. Nobody checks on you. Nobody calls you. You don't call anybody. You don't have anybody to talk to. There's nobody who can pick from your voice whether things have changed or your demeanor. So I want to mention that people should be careful not to be isolated, especially when you get married. Again, until that, I'm going to be inviting you and Dr. You guys will be here recently anyway. We're going to be dealing with marriage very soon. We'll always do a series on marriage. You know, before you say I do, and after you say I do, and then divorce. We're going to be talking about that. But I just, because this domestic violence is like this, because when your spouse know that your family is always visiting you, or they talk to you, not always visiting, but they check up on you or whatever, there's no way they're going to be beating you up, because a family member will check on you and you'll be crying, or you'll sound low, and they will not come and be lying to the doctor that they fell. Again, ask for help. I am so appreciative of this call today with the different perspectives and the engagement of everybody. I see Dr. Ogoji is back. So if you have a question for Dr. Ogoji, we have about 6 minutes left.
Yes, we wanted to take a round of the table. So we'll start with Dr. Ogoji. Please have your words or your last words or your last words of, your last words actually on the topic domestic violence or domestic abuse, however we call it. Dr. Ogoji.
Yeah, so my take here is people should...
You may be muted. So we'll go across the Atlantic. Dr. Kumba, I know you stayed up for us. So let us come back to you.
Hello?
Oh, yeah, Dr. Ogoji. Okay, Dr. Kumba, hold on. Dr. Ogoji.
Dr. Ogoji,
hello.
Can you go ahead.
I think with domestic violence, as we said, as we said, it's a serious issue. It can kill. People should learn to speak up and stay connected with family and friends. Don't get isolated, as Reverend Pam just said. Laws need to change to protect both men and women in both parts of the continent. There should be a balance. The law in this part of the world is shifted towards the women. Africa is shifted towards the men. There should be balance, and nobody should be a victim.
Okay, thank you. We'll go across the Atlantic now, and we land in Dakar, Senegal, where we have Dr. Kumba waiting.
Yes, domestic violence, a nightmare that we need to deal with, you know, and this message is clear. We cannot say it enough. We cannot say it too much. Please speak out. Seek help. Don't die in silence.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Kumba. And as Reverend Pam says, we will be needing you every day going forward, every Sunday going forward. Thank you so very much. And Tilda, okay, you have something to say.
Yeah, I'm just saying that we break the silence. Women, speak up. Women, expose your perpetrators. And even if you are just an observer, let us unite to stop saying no to domestic violence, because there are so many deaths that are registered because of this. Let's pull our efforts together. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. We are not yet wrapping up. We have a few more minutes, Reverend Pam. I know that you announced the topic at the top of the hour, witchcraft and superstition, but domestic violence is even an uglier witch or superstitious belief. So what should we do about domestic violence? Speak up or keep quiet?
No, you cannot keep quiet under no circumstances.
I know.
This thing about the name, the family name, nonsense. That's reputation. You know, somebody once said that there are some people that will bleed to death just because people are clapping for them. Forget about what people will say. Forget about it. Let me tell you, you can never please people. You can never. If you do something, they will complain. You don't do something, they will complain. So forget about family name, forget about reputation. Because that same person is not around now to worry about that name. And the truth will always come out. It will always come out. Domestic violence is not acceptable to any man out there who has ever raised their hand on a woman. I say, shame on you, you are a coward. You're not even a man, you're a boy. To any woman who has ever raised their hand on a man, I will say, you're not even a woman, you're not even wanting to be in the same gender with us, you know, and including those that use their mouth to abuse their spouses, both genders. You know, God created them. If you cannot respect your husband, respect yourself at least, and vice versa. You know, there's a scripture in Matthew 10:19 that says, when somebody sets you up, don't take any thought of what you will say or think, because it will be given to you at the same hour. So if somebody is tempting you, and for those men, you know, if your wife has mouth diarrhea, just leave her alone. Step out of the house. I'm not saying go and chase another woman. And running your husbands out into the arms of other women. Seek help. Seek counseling. I can tell you that we have counselors here. We have Dr. Kuma, we have Cristilda. I'm here. They'll send us a message and we will intervene with love and prayers. We're not going to tell you to divorce. Please don't accept any kind of abuse. Don't. Please. You are worth something. You are important. Just remember that you don't have to running things with that man. So the man can you and not even think about it. And let me tell you, if that man kills you, you will find another girlfriend or will find a girlfriend. Over to you, Nia.
Thank you so very much. So much to talk about, so little time. But before we go, know that this is happening. It is real. It's going to become real in the next 2 weeks or so. The White House announced on Friday that the Trump administration will deny visas to immigrants who cannot prove that they will have health insurance or the ability to pay for medical costs once they become permanent residents in the United States. So this is breaking news that came out on Friday night, but it was only last night that it was published. This is the latest move by the Trump administration to undermine legal immigration procedures. So please, if in the next 2 weeks, they will start going to effect with this thing, except the courts intervene immediately, because if you cannot afford health care when you come to the United States, if you cannot afford to sponsor yourself, then you will be in trouble. I hear there is a cap of $60,000, which your sponsor should have in their account to be able to sponsor you to come here and live here permanently. So that said, I think at this point, we will thank Dr. Ogoji, we'll thank Tilda, we'll thank Dr. Kumba from across the waters, and we'll thank Reverend Pam for being always faithful and always with us. Divine Chamokong introduced the program. My name is Asonglefac Nkemleke. Please, let's wait and watch as we move forward with Africa Online. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.